Hello there, and welcome back to Hydroponics Daily, your go-to podcast for everything soilless cultivation. And I'm your host, Dr. Russell Sharp, the founder of Utrema Limited. And in the words of Howard Beale from the film Network, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. If you are listening to this in the car and you've got kids, I warn you, I am going to swear in this because I am royally annoyed, let's put it that way, with the horticultural and agricultural press. I used to think that people who said that the mainstream media was corrupt and not telling the public the truth were crazy conspiracy theorists, often, spouted by right-wing idiots on Twitter. But my dealings with the agricultural, horticultural and national press over the last 12 months have meant that I have lost faith in journalism, basically in the United Kingdom and further afield, especially in agriculture and horticulture. I don't believe there is any investigative journalism going on. I don't believe anyone's actually giving an opinion when they are doing research. And I believe they are just pumping out fluff pieces and press releases and advertorials and not giving the public what they need to know in this ever-increasing world where we need to know about environmental threats and public safety when it comes to our food. And I'm really annoyed. I have given them press releases and stories over the last 12 months. Just look at my reporting on ICL, Israel Chemicals Limited. I showed that they are selling white phosphorus for military use. I showed that they are funding a whole battalion of the Israeli army, the Gaza 585, which have been filmed burning polytunnels in Gaza. I mean, if the horticulture industry are not concerned with this, what the hell? Talked about Osmocote and those controlled release granules that are putting microplastics willingly into soils in horticulture, and like Miracle Grow granules as well that are going into the soil directly, and people are just throwing microplastics without even realizing it into their soil, all being led by ICL, and the horticulture industry can't care less. Why is that? Well, if you go to Hort News website, if you go to Horticulture Week, if you go to New Ag International, if you go to Pitch Care, etc., you'll always see a big banner for ICL fertilizers at the top of those publications, and you'll see the adverts, big, full A4 page adverts in those publications, because they're all sponsored. They're all on the sucking on the tit of the Israel Chemicals Limited. Now, I am not an anti-Semite. I am not anti-Israeli, but that is a news story. If someone is selling white phosphorus in military use, if they are funding a military battalion that's been filmed burning greenhouses, if they are pumping out plastics into our soils, then that is a news story, and they are neglecting their journalism duty by doing that. Why are they getting into journalism in the first place if they don't want to run cutting-edge stories like that? I can't believe that is not a story that is worthy of attention. And obviously, you go back to January and my reporting on people trying to sell farmers cobalt and nickel fertilizers. These are known 100% carcinogens, completely residual. They stick around in your lungs, in the soil, in the environment. These are heavy metals, highly toxic, carcinogenic. People are actively trying to sell them in Europe, North America, Australia. I've named names. I've given the journalists everything they need to know. And not one of them has run a story about it. They're trying to sell these carcinogenic fertilizers to organic farmers. They're being sold by charlatans and con men. And no one has been prepared to do that. So why is that? Why are no news sites doing that? Why are they only running advertorials, adverts and things like this? I think that they are scared to be the first person to put their head above the parapet, apart from me on my podcast. Even when they're given cut and dry categorical evidence, they could go to the European Chemical Safety Database run by the European Union in Finland and fact check everything I have said about carcinogenic fertilizers. This is not debatable. This is not my opinion. These are 100% stonewall carcinogenic fertilizers being actively attempted to be sold to farmers by Danish companies, American companies, Australian companies, and no one has been prepared, apart from me, to talk about it. And it's really, really pissing me off. Same with the ICR stories. So, as I say, why do these people get into journalism? And, the Garden Media Guild is a group of journalisms, and they're just circle jerking themselves. They've got a list of podcasts that have been nominated for their awards recently, and it's all the industry insiders, including one podcast that's got one 1/100th of the output of this podcast, and yeah, we didn't even get a sniff. And then you've got things like Horticulture Week, which is hidden behind paywalls. How often do you go to a news site for horticulture or agriculture and it's hidden behind a paywall? And how often do you actually get an opinion, or when you do get an editorial in one of these magazines, it's weak as piss and it's just absolute nonsense, saying, oh, it's March and plants are about to, spring into life and this is a season of rejuvenation or something like that. Absolute shite. So I am really annoyed with the horticulture and agriculture industry. The agriculture industry, they, take it up the arse from ICL as well. The polyhalites factories in North Yorkshire, they're owned by ICL. Polyhalite's a big thing in a lot of the agricultural industry journals. It's a good job I own my company. I don't have any shareholders because I'd probably be sacked for saying this. But as I say, it's 100% correct and it's my opinion and I am pissed off. Let me know what you think of the state of agriculture and horticultural journalism in the UK, in the US and elsewhere. But I'm just really sick of it. You bring these stories and no one seems to be... They'll do a story on an environmental issue that is just so minor compared to willingly using carcinogenic fertilizers that blows your tiny mind. And yeah, if you've got any other stories that you think should be brought to the attention of the public, let me know. And I'm more than happy to feature them on Hydroponics Daily, even if it's not to do with hydroponics. As I say, this is a hydroponics only podcast, soilless cultivation, but at Utrema, we cover all sorts of aspects and we compare the benefits of soil cultivation to soilless cultivation. And not having microplastics and carcinogens in your growing environment is a big benefit for hydroponics. So stick that in your pipe and smoke it. That's been Hydroponics Daily for today. If you thought it was useful, then give us a 5-star review. If you're a journalist that I've offended, I don't care. And if you'd like to know more about me and what we stand for at Utrema, basically we sell fertilizers, biostimulants and biopesticides, but we also actively try and reduce the amount of chemicals and toxins being applied to food and soils. Things like reducing herbicide use through our blackgrass biologicals program and our use of non-biocidal pesticides. Everything we do has got a moral compass, and I wish more organisations could say the same. Start with your why rather than your how or your what examples, Simon Sinek would say. That's been me blabbering on for too long. I'm going to go down, have a beer, calm down, but let me know your thoughts and if you agree or you disagree. Really interested if you disagree. Okay, thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.